Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Join Orange Slices with Jeff and Ian, episode number 61, sponsored by our friends at Super Deeker. Today, we go about an hour. So if you're going to stay the whole time, we apologize in advance. It's an hour of your life you'll never get back, but we have some fun. Enjoy.
Welcome to the show, Surprised McGee. That's quite. When did you start playing for a band when you're not doing this comedy show? You are looking like trooper.
Trooper, platinum blonde with no hair.
No,
I like that.
Platinum light blonde.
It looks like you laid a pancake over your head this morning.
I did. I was like
that.
I want to look like I'm on Hockey Night in Canada in the 70s.
Yeah, you look good. We should Super Deeker's our big sponsor now, but maybe, especially for you, we could do just for men, and for me, we could do just hair for men. I don't know what we could do, but
I'm sure I'll get carved. You should do sort of like a guy.
Yeah. If we were back home right now, they'd be taking us down hard.
Oh, they are anyways.
Awesome. Yeah,
they're all sitting around the free Wi-Fi and Tim Hortons taking us down.
I'll be there soon enough.
No, when are you going up?
Stop. Next week, I'm going to be back up in the Great Northwest.
Nice. So, I'm going up to Vancouver this Thursday for Thursday, Friday. And then my mom was like, "Are you coming home?" And I was like, "I'm not." And it's like, "Mah." So I let my mom and dad down. Fantastic.
Hey, do we have to take a COVID test to get into Canada now? Or
yes,
you do. Good?
You do.
You still do, right?
It's only a day before. It's not that 3-day test. It's an easier one.
Okay. Yeah. So
they don't want this American junk coming up there.
No, they don't. But I do have some time in the Vancouver airport on the way back. So they got it set up good for COVID testing on the way back to the States. Just getting up there. Yeah.
And then you go to Lululemon and just get some Canada wear.
Yeah. Lululemon.
They got me for $200. I bought Carrie Ann a bunch of stuff the last time I was in Vancouver because they had the Olympic stuff out. So it was pretty good. I got her stuff with Canadian flags all over. She's like, "What am I going to do with this?"
Walk around Long Beach with it.
Yeah. You're going to stand out like you're Canadian on vacation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Bet Cap looks great in that Lululemon stuff.
Yeah. It's fun. Somebody used to tell me, "Go, you know how you can tell somebody's from Michigan?" I'm like, "I don't know." And they go, "Because it says it on their shirt." Michigan. We wear Michigan. I was in Wisconsin this weekend in a theater, and it was awesome. West Bend, Wisconsin, just packed to the tits. And I had no idea. I'm doing the show. Halfway through, I look up and I see somebody moving up top. I'm like, "Is there a balcony in here?" They turn on the lights. There's another 300 people at the top. I'm like, "Holy shit." I'm ignoring them the whole time.
Yeah. Well, you like to just play to the audience. You don't like to play to the balcony because how many times? Well, actually, you know what, people, let's talk about this story for a second before we get going. Talking about balconies, Lord Bag.
Yes.
Do you remember when you had this special charter plane come down and get you in Burbank?
Yes.
Yes, I think we talked about this a long time ago, but for those of you who are still listening, years ago, Lord Bag.
For you that are still listening, that's funny. For you people that haven't turned off this crap by now. Yeah.
So years ago, Lord Bag came in, parachuted in to close it out, save the day. Dennis Miller was at the House of Blues in Vegas, a great venue, and his opener, something happened. So there was a call made to Southern California, and who came to the rescue but Lord Bag. So I went down. Was it
you and Rod? Is that who flew?
No, it was me and Tony. Tony.
Yeah.
Remember Tony?
Yeah.
Tony, she was awesome. So I did, Tony and I came down and got you in a Seneca 2. So we flew from Boulder City, correct, down to Burbank to get Lord Bag. And so I've known Ian a long, long time at this point, right? So I didn't realize that he was a little bit nervous around the flying. He's got these superstitions he likes. So his suitcase is laying on the ground by the back of the airplane, and he's kind of wandering around a little bit. And he takes a picture of his suitcase. I said, "Why did you take a picture of your suitcase?" He says, "So if we go down, they can identify me because I'll know it's my suitcase." I'm like, that's a little bit suspect. But so, and then
I trusted you as much in the air as I did on defense.
Oh my God. Yeah, I know. I had about the same success rate, but I'm still here. So we fly up to Vegas. We're trying to tell a story about a balcony. Somehow we're in Burbank. So we fly up to Vegas, right? Tony and I fly Ian back. We had this guy's so important, no single pilot operation. We had 2 pilots in the flight deck, fly Ian back. And he's got this little tap he does on the side of the airplane before he gets on. I'm like, "You're going to chip the paint," but he didn't care. And so we got to Boulder City, into Vegas.
Paint. Don't touch the side of the plane.
No, yeah, it's like, what are you doing? And
it's a stolen plane.
It's like his hand's like a jackhammer on the side of the airplane. So we go to the that night we go to House of Blues. Ian's got the green room. Dennis Miller's, he comes later. Ian opens up, and here's where the balcony comes in. There's a balcony in the House of Blues in Vegas, and I'm sure there are most of them. Great venue. Ian has the place rocking. And who are we there with? Our old friend Vin. Remember Vinny was there?
Yeah.
So Vinny DeFrisco, rest in peace, Vinny. He'd be loving this right now. Who comes walking in beside me and Vin? We're standing off the side of the stage. Ian's got 1,400 people just rolling out there. It's a great show. Rob Lowe comes in with Miller, right? Miller looks at Ian for about 10 seconds in disgust and walks back to the green room. Meanwhile, we're standing beside Rob Lowe.
Libtard.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't know it then. And Rob Lowe's loving every minute of it. And so we're sitting there watching Ian, me, Vinny, and Rob Lowe set the house down. Ian comes off the stage. What? Dennis never said anything to you, right? We go back to the green room. Dennis goes on, does his thing, walks out. We go into Dennis's green room after he's done and had a great time with the staff at the House of Blues.
We had a great time.
All because of a balcony. Sorry, I'm getting a call here today.
Of course you are. Very popular. You know what was great about that? Do you remember, you know why Dennis didn't appreciate me? Because I talked to the crowd and he had somebody yelled out, "I love you, Dennis." And he said, "I'll pay for those person's tickets. Get them the fuck out of here."
Yeah. He was all fired up to start his show. But that was one of the best nights. And, you know, you talked about a balcony in Wisconsin. We had a balcony in Vegas for you. And back in the day, back in the day, thanks to Dennis Miller's
he brought us
opener not showing up, we had a great time. And we got to go into the green room, which was just loaded with goodies. Spent about another 2 or 3 hours in there with the staff and had a great night. And that's Vegas.
Had a great
House of Blues.
It's been a while since we've done that, but this weekend I was in Wisconsin, and there was a balcony. I had to fly via the old United, but the plane going in from Chicago into Milwaukee was the size of the plane you guys took me into Vegas on, and I had to take a picture of my luggage at that time too, because I was like, "Oh, this might not make it." But yeah, you get close to people. You might not get COVID, but you're definitely getting some sort of venereal disease when you sit on that size of plane. It is tight.
Yeah.
Oh,
you can talk about the air conditioning system all you want, right?
Yeah. Anyways, let's get to hockey. We've told people how famous I am and how great of a flyer you are. So let's get to hockey. By the way, many hockey players flying planes now. There's you, Rod Buskus. I think Tim Hunter flies a plane as well.
Yeah, that's right. Bobby Joyce from the Bruins, Cam Neely and Janney. Remember that line? Bobby Joyce. And then Big Al Secord, he of the Chicago Blackhawks. And then one of the Christian brothers from the Olympic team, the Miracle on Ice.
Jesus or God? Which Christian brother is it?
It's Dave, I think. So it's the third brother, but he flies too. So anyway,
you know what we should do? People have asked, they said, "Ian, when are you guys going to do some interviews on there?" Let's just try to get people that fly planes for our first interviews. Let's get hockey players that fly planes. Let's do that. That way we can ask them about that.
We'll see.
We're putting it out there. Tim Hunter, Rod Buskus, Dave Christian. Who else did you say? Al Secord,
Bobby Joyce, and
Bobby
Big Al.
We're
Yeah,
gonna
Big
put
Al.
so send some emails out to them, and let's ask them to be our first guests on the old Enjoying Orange Slices with Jeffy. Anyways, let's get to hockey. Now we've talked about guests, we've talked about flying, we've talked about where I am. The league just flew apart this week. Just flew apart. I read a story that Gary Bettman has lost his mind on the general managers, that he wants them to stop complaining about refereeing. Have you heard any of this?
Yeah, well, it's getting to be a little bit more of an issue, and you're starting to see some of the players that you would never expect to talk about this. One being one of my favorite players in the league, one Gabriel Landeskog in Colorado. Love that guy. Was kind of hoping that Vegas could have grabbed him that last summer, but they can't get everybody. But he talked about it. Then last night, Maroon, him and Simmons were going at it between the benches, just chirping each other. They gave them both 10-minute misconducts. He talked about it today. And I, it's a tough job. There's a staffing shortage everywhere, right? And refereeing is one of the places where there's a staffing shortage now too. So it's not as, I mean, who wants to go out and get yelled at for an hour every night or 2 hours? But the NHL, I think what people are looking for is consistency. There seems to be the rule book kind of changes as the year goes on. And I think what they're looking for is it just to be followed, whatever way that's going to be, so the players and the teams can adjust. Plus, this time of year, it's long season. The general managers are a little stressed out. They're a little frustrated. So they're probably doing the chirping so they don't take it out on the coaches.
I also think it's all the cameras we have on the game and the media that we're able to do it in. The timing of it, we slow it down. Everybody looks at it and goes, why didn't he call that? Why didn't he call that? Well, go on the highway and drive 100 and make decisions and realize that's what's going on the ice. They have to make the decisions. They're not all going to be right, but I would say 99.9% of the times it's not, they're not doing it consciously trying to affect a player or a team. It may happen. What happened with Maroon and Simmons last night, I thought was stupid. That was minor hockey calling that. I was just like, let them chirp. That's part of the fun of the game, Yep. So I thought that was a waste of time. And sometimes, they're like cops. Sometimes they bring their baggage from home. Maybe they've heard their kids chirping all day and now they're tired of it. You shut up, 10 minutes each, sit down, son of a bitch. And then they realize after they shouldn't have done it. But I do think when you get on, when you go on national TV, radio and start complaining about things, you're taking it too far. Like they get upset. The players get upset when their coaches call them out in the media. We've heard that. So let's go with that same respect. If you can't be called out by people in the media, then other people shouldn't be able to be called out in the media, or else it's right across the board. Everybody gets called out.
Well, here's the issue you have with the refs.
Here's your tissue.
yeah, exactly. We'll be sponsored by Scotty's Tissue here soon. But I think what happens is, because you have a little bit of a staffing shortage, these guys are doing a lot of games during the course of a season. Mm-hmm. And I never really realized it until recently. An old teammate of mine who was a ref in the league for a long time, Dean Morton, just retired. And he's just like, Sharps, I'm done. I'm like just spent. I'm looking forward to some downtime. And I think what's happened is the same thing with the refs, and the pipeline of the refereeing isn't like it used to be. And so, just like a lot of other businesses, they got to find a way to get more young kids and young people and interested in reffing. And if you even go to a youth hockey game or soccer game, parents are losing their minds chirping at these kids that are reffing. It's tough to get someone motivated to keep going up the ladder to do it. So in the NHL, where all this money is, no wonder Bettman's trying to kind of throw up a fence here and protect some of these guys. So we'll see what happens as we get into the playoffs. But history tells us that the rule book kind of goes out the playoffs as the playoffs carry on. And I mean, that I think, like, we could talk about a play that happened the other night, but as the playoffs go on, the superstars start, the more the clutching and grabbing and the more physicality, superstars start to get negated a bit. So we'll see how the refs call it.
What did you? We'll go right to it because that's a referee. That was a referee problem the other day. The Anaheim, Arizona play. Were they in Arizona? They were in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
there's 4,000 fans just on the edge of their seats going nuts. And Zegras, he does the old Michigan again, and people say that Beagle goes nuts because of that, but was it really because of that? Because I have a lot of thoughts on this. But I don't think everything that went on was because of the Michigan that he pulled off. What do you think happened?
What is this kind of deep thoughts with Jack Andy? Go for it. I'd like to hear your thoughts. And then
I think the play before the digging of it and the winning 5-0 was kind of a little bit bushy. But at the same time, Anaheim not having a big player on there, somebody that can
Delorier.
Yeah,
they had Delorier, right? Yeah,
right.
Traded him.
Right, so they've got nobody that says, if you do something next shift, you pay for it, right? So I think it's fair what he did, but he went overboard. And it's a league where you're trying not to cross your wires the whole time you're playing because the game's so fast and so emotional. And sometimes it's going to happen. Sadly, a guy that would never be fighting took it in the face many times. But at the same time, if you're running the bench in Anaheim, you've got to let these guys know, hey, no need to fire things up. Score at will, but don't right? Because who's the announcer in Arizona?
Tyson Nash.
He got himself into trouble. I know you'll speak about this in a second, but the first thing he says when he played in Chicago, last 5 minutes of the game, he was keeping him off the ice because he didn't want to get his ass kicked. So because it takes a little bit of knowledge from the bench as well. So I think there's a lot of people that did a little bit of wrong, and by the time it ended, it was a huge mistake. So
yeah. Well, you got to be careful on something like this because you end up dating yourself, right? And I don't disagree with what you're saying. No, you look great. But I think that we have to be careful because you and I are, like we've talked about many times, around the same age, late 30s, mid to late 30s, but we're 57. A little bit long in the tooth, right? Compared to Zegras, Terry, and these younger guys. Now, Zegras has done some stuff this year that has, it's just gone viral. It's all over the place. Like you said, we have too many cameras in the building following the refs. Well, we have those same cameras are following Zegras and these other guys. And, Matthew Tkachuk tried to do the exact same thing last night against LA, and the play just went on. It wasn't a big deal. It fell off the stick. He tried to do the Michigan, throw it in the net.
Right.
Zegras is just a guy that's come in, and you know what? He's taken no prisoners for the way he operates. Some could say cocky, some could say confident, whatever the difference is there. He's a young guy cutting his teeth in the league. Anaheim needs this kid, along with Troy Terry, to be the top of the top. And I know what you're saying. He scored the Michigan earlier, and then there was a loose puck with a few minutes left, and he went and jammed at it. Okay, yeah, you know what? The respect in the game says at that point, the game's out of hand. It's over. Let the whistle blow. But that's not to say Beagle wouldn't have still come and cross-checked him in the back. Beagle overall is a very honest player over the years. I think people would agree with that. So he digs for the puck. Beagle comes in. It's 5-0, probably to teach the kid a lesson, and just to clear out the front of the net. Terry comes into his defense, and Beagle snaps and loses it. And I love watching Troy Terry play. Zegras is an amazing player to watch as well. You hate to see a kid get or any player get kind of another call. I didn't turn off my they really want to get a hold of me today. The problem is we all know what kind of player Troy Terry is. He's not an aggressive player. He's a young superstar, and you know what? He's in over his head, way out of his league against Beagle, and Beagle knows it. So I could see Beagle kind of seemed like he first took his gloves off and then he kind of snapped a little bit and went the rest of the way. And Tyson Nash, who I really have enjoyed listening to over the years in Phoenix, because you got to be entertaining when you're watching them because they're usually not very good. He's been great, and he just kind of calls it off his cuff. I understand the way the game was and the way he played back then, but it's not that way today. You'll see 3-4-0 leads and games turn 7-6, or the other team that was down end up winning. And people are like, well, where's the response? Those days are gone. And, Zegras kind of said it, and he's a young person. So I would have to put, it holds waters. People don't want to see that anymore. And I know there's a group of people that think that hockey has to be a physical game, and it is a physical game. But when you go to these games now, they're so much faster. Yeah, there's some hitting, but there's not near the hitting there used to be. So when a guy like Beagle grabs a guy like Troy Terry, obviously there's going to be outrage. I'm not, and then Tyson doubled down on what he thought. He's like, you know what, you should. Basically, Tyson Nash thought that, the Ducks were kind of showing them up, and that someone has to pay the price. And you'll have a lot of old school hockey people that would agree with that. I just think it's an unfortunate situation. And I wish, for Beagle, I'm sure Beagle has some regrets on it too. Maybe not the cross check and the first punch in the head, like to kind of set Terry straight. But Troy Terry's not that kind of player. And I bet you if you asked him at the end of the season, he'd probably say, you know what, I wish I would have handled that a little bit differently, because Beagle's been a good player over the course of his career. And he's not he's not a cheap shot guy, but that certainly didn't look very good.
If we go to Tyson Nash, I don't have a problem with what he said. He's there to give an opinion. He's not there to say what you think he should say. He's there to give his opinion of a player that used to play. So when he says, it would be like this when we played, I have no problem with that, what he said. But at the end, he has to say, but it isn't like that now. That would have changed everything. He wouldn't have gotten the blowback that he gotten, because it is a different game. But at the same time, if somebody comes over to your house and does donuts in your grass, it's a different time. Not many people have grass. So should you be upset that you have grass getting donutted? So.
Well, it would be rocks all over your Vegas. Be spraying rocks all over your yard and your windows. Well, here's the thing. It's almost like he's getting, I hate to use the word counseling him out, but it's like, oh, you know what? Everyone's all over him about his opinion. You know what? I get it. He don't try and paint him as a crusty old man. That's his opinion. That's it. You know what? And I got to tell you, do you remember, like, he kind of reminded me of JR, like years ago. JR used to be really entertaining. And then, he said some stuff and NBC's like, okay, you need to go.
Right.
I'm really interested.
And now NBC doesn't have, NBC doesn't have hockey. So he would probably still be on TNT. That's what's fun.
Yeah, that's the crazy part about it. So Tyson, like I said, I've really enjoyed him over the years. I think he's a character. He's just given his opinion. And, that's the way it used to be. And I know what people are saying today. Well, listen, Lord Bagg and Sharps, it's not that way anymore. And we understand that. But I can tell you something right now. If he went and did that in front of the Calgary net, which he probably wouldn't have with Goodbranson and Zadorov or Lucic on the ice, the response would have been real similar, except they might not have pummeled one of the kids. But I can guarantee you, Zegras and those, they would have made him pay a price. And so there's a fine line. It's just an opinion. Whether Tyson's outdated or not is not for me to say. I applaud the guy for sharing it, whether you agree or not.
If he's outdated, how about Timo Solani came in yelling out, where is our tough guy? Where's our tough guy? Then that's outdated.
Yeah, you're right. You've got some different, and I looked at that too, and I was like, okay, we all look at, the end of the situation, right? But the start of the situation.
Verbeek's been general manager for 4 weeks, and that's what you're going to have to say,
give the guy a chance. He's going to build Anaheim. We talked about him before.
He's going to build.
They're going to have, he's going to do really well there, and they're going to be just fine. The thing is, too, is the whole, there's, as a young guy, as a young person in anything, you got to kind of cut your teeth and you got to know your boundaries. And, you know, with Delorier not there anymore, or someone like Reeves not there to kind of keep the peace, or Lucic or Goodbranson kind of guy, Tom Wilson, sometime, you know what, it's just a little reminder if there's a little bit of a way the game's played respectful wise. And you'll have a lot of people say 100% Zegras should have gone for that loose puck in the net, or what he perceived to be one. But it all started there. And we always say situational awareness in life. 3 minutes, 4 minutes left, up 5-0. You know what? Show a little bit of respect. And and people might say, you know what? Screw respect. Try and put it in the net. And I'm not going to argue with that either. But Tyson's side of it is show some respect. You ran it up. You didn't run it up, but you blew these guys out 5-0 at home. And there was a response at the end of the game. People didn't like it, but that's how little that kind of play happens now in the NHL.
You're in a bad neighborhood. You're in a bad neighborhood. You're walking. You have a pocket full of money. You don't pull that pocket full of money out in the bad neighborhood. Right. You should be able to, right? You absolutely should be able to, but you can't. And you have to be aware of your surroundings. And you have to be aware of the situation you're in. So basically, he's in a bad neighborhood. He's whipped out the money. And now he's on. I can't believe it. I can't believe I got robbed.
Yeah. You know? Well, and you know what? I think it's just part of.
And another thing,
like I said, yeah, it's just part of it.
Every kid can learn how to drive on a stick shift. Well,
a lot of them wouldn't even know what that is anymore. But they'd have to go to Europe or down under to drive a stick shift.
I had a guy open for me not too long ago that had a stick shift, and his parents bought it for him so he couldn't text and drive. How guys like, your parents are smart. That is great.
I like that. Wow. All right. Okay. So I think we beat this into the ground, but
no, let's talk about it more. Okay. Let's move on.
I think we came up with, you know, what do you do, right? There's I think from players and people, executives have been in the game a long time. There's a perceived lack of disrespect there from Zegras, and I don't know. I mean,
I want to talk about
Terry take one in the face like that. He's a good player. I really like him.
You don't want to see him like you know it's a mental game too. He's going to have some BTST of whatever. SD school district number 88 in his head after that, because you don't get beaten like that and not have some hear some footsteps every so often, which is shitty. That's the thing, you know.
Yeah, he could have. You know what? Beagle probably could have laid off the gas there at the end. I mean, Beagle's a big guy. I don't know if people realize he's 6'3", been around a long time, big strong guy. But anyways, frustrating season for them in Arizona, and I'm sure the last few years have been frustrating for him. So maybe it's just a culmination of all this. I don't know. Or maybe just is like, you know what, the puck stops here. These guys got to stop doing this stuff. I don't know. But moving on.
Let's move on. We're going to talk about Toronto and Tampa at some point. But before we go into Toronto and Tampa, I want to talk about Keith Yandle getting pulled out of the lineup by Philadelphia. A lot of people losing their minds about it. I'm kind of on the other foot. You're not guaranteed anything. Nobody's guaranteed anything in life. The fact that he has played that many games is insane. I'll tell you what, Philadelphia screwed me over a long time ago. They stopped my Ironman streak at 0 because they did not draft me. So that's the way you have to look at it. I think they've had such a horrible season in Philadelphia. If anything, they probably should have moved him if they wanted, if there was a chance of him keeping that iron streak going along. And I'm guessing nobody wanted him, because you have to see what you have in Philadelphia in these last couple weeks, because you can't do this again next year just to get the guy to 100 and 1,080, like it's fucking tough times in Philadelphia. So my question to you is, I know. My question to you is, and is it Yo's call, or is it an organization's call to pull him out of that?
so Keith Yandel was what, 963 or 983 games in a row.
Right.
Ironman, amazing for any player, but
Pretty cool.
specifically a defenseman, right? Because you're just going to take one in the lips once in a while, or someone's going to shoot a puck off you at about 105 miles an hour. Or they're going to railroad you into the boards. There's just always something that could happen. But Yandel's been great. But this Ironman streak went back to Florida when he was there, and they were it was the kitty by, like, well, what do we do? It's the elephant in the room. And he played through it because they were going to sit him, and he kept going, and they moved him on to Philly. And finally, it was an organizational decision. They got some young guys into the lineup, and you're right, Philly has been a complete dumpster fire the last few years. And Philly's one of the teams, when they're good, it's good for the league. I mean, it's good to see every team be well, but Philly's kind of got this history, right, way back to the 70s. And it's good for them to be good. And I don't know if I see it in the Eastern Conference. Now, if you look at how the Eastern Conference is going, they're not even close to these other teams that are in the playoffs. So, you know what? It had to happen at some point. It would have been an organizational decision. And congrats to him. He's going to live very happily ever after his NHL career. He's had a great career, and sometimes stuff just happens. So the next guy up for the Ironman streak is none other than one of our favorites, Phil Kessel in Arizona.
It's funny. It's funny about that. He heard his name while he was at the concession. I'm not. Had a hot dog in his hand. What? It's me.
Yeah.
Phil the Thrill.
Yeah, so he's next, and he'll get it sometime next year. But good for Yandel. I think we should be applauding the streak. And yeah, it sucks that it was a healthy scratch, but tell you what, give me 963 games in the league, and I'll be flying everybody around in the bar. Yeah.
It's one of those. I talk to our friend Luciano Cosmari every so often about things like this, and not everything needs to be a stat. I feel like we try to celebrate stats a little too much. Yeah, the 1,000 games I think mean something more than the Ironman streak, because there's at times that they're just pushing them out there to keep them going. So let's be more about that.
Yeah, these things started to become a distraction. Like, remember when Patrick Marleau passed Gordie Howe for most games played in the NHL? It was starting to become a distraction to the team, right? And then you're like, this guy's getting long in the tooth, and what are we doing? Do we have a young guy that we could plug in and get some experience? And everyone's like, well, Spilly's out of the playoffs, just play him. But, there's 2 weeks left in the season. I would guess Spilly has, at that point, probably 12 games left. You bring a young guy up from the minors, let him cut his teeth for 12 games, give him an idea of what he's getting ready to try and do through the summer and into next season. So he's a feel for the strength, a feel for the pace, a feel for the travel, the crowds, everything that goes along with it. And you are putting a building block in place for this kid for the end of the season to have a goal. Hey, I need to do this. I need to do that. Because until you play in the NHL, you have no idea how strong these guys are, how cagey they are, and how fast they are. And
you prepare for the future, not the past.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying it's kind of shitty, but at the same time, it happens to all of us. Things end, and you can't be. Very rarely do things end perfectly. A lot of times they just one day you're just not doing it. So. He's still got a nice glide scope right onto the runway because he's still playing. He doesn't have the Ironman streak, and people being that upset about that they should be going, he's still playing. That's fantastic. And he didn't get hurt. The fact is he didn't get hurt. He's still able to play.
Here's what people have to remember. We say it's a young people's young person's game, right? It's a young person's game. It's like you and I. We're looking for some people in their early 20s to take over this podcast. It's not going to be too much longer, right? Before we get some rookies.
I almost choked. We almost got a 20-year-old sooner than we thought when you choked me out with a glass with my water.
So, I mean, people are looking at us going, yeah, when are you guys going to start to bring some young people into the lineup? So we're just trying to get an interview with somebody, and we've been promising that we're show 61. We probably started throwing that out there at about show 7 or 8,
Yeah.
but we're not there yet. So we'll try, but good luck
Because
in
we like
Philly.
to talk. We don't need other people coming in and fucking this up. This is you don't need any information from other people. And by the way,
No.
speaking of information, I have to put this out there. This show is sponsored by a great hockey training system called Super Deker. Super Deker, it can fit in your house. It's a piece of plastic over top of a training magnetic information magical system, and you can stick handle on it, and it tells you where to put the puck, and you get to try to challenge yourself every time you play. You can play against your brother, you can play against your sister, you can play against your parents, you can play against your friends downtown. They can come over to your house because you can set it up anywhere that you have a plug-in. Super Deker is a proud sponsor of this show, and if you use the code SLICES, you will get a discount, and they will be thrilled to add in some other prizes with that purchase. So go to superdeker.com and tell them Orange Slices sent you. Okay, so let's talk about who's out this week. Out of the playoffs would be, and then we'll go to. I want to ask you whether Carey Price plays in Montreal next year.
Okay,
so which do you want to start, Carey Price, or do you want to go to who's out of the playoffs?
Let's talk about who's out, and then we'll go back to a game that we were going to touch on about 20 minutes ago. But
Toronto, Tampa.
Toronto,
I forgot it.
That's right. So let's just talk about this game. Toronto finally stood up to Tampa, went down and bootlicked them 6-2. That is really a good sign for Toronto because they've been getting picked on for a long time. They kept the goals down against, and they got the goals up for, which is huge.
Jack Campbell back in that game?
Yeah. You know what? I think the other kid played, or did Campbell play last night? I think Campbell might be out.
I'm not sure.
Oh, did? Okay, so my apologies on that. I was working what was going on, but I'll tell you this.
Bragger. Just shows up. I've got a job.
I had places to be, but I looked at the box score and looked at the highlights and just wanted to see who Matthews did his thing. But when I looked at the standings, Toronto is now and Boston have now moved up. Doesn't look like they're going to catch Florida. Tampa's moved down the wild card now, and then so we'll see. Tampa can still get in second or third. The only other team in the East that's fallen out, and I'm a little bit concerned about, and they're spilling some oil, but they're still going to get in easily, is going to be Washington, who looks like they're going to get Florida in the first round.
They are looking for a runway very badly.
Yeah, they're spewing out the oil. So that's it.
I think they just need a break. Do they need a rest, or do you think it's all a mess there?
I watched them the other night, and it's kind of frustrating to watch them a little because when they're going and offensively, they are dynamic. But man, did they ever make some bonehead plays in their own end and defensively? And then they've been on their goaltending all year, and I just don't see the focus there. Now, this is a veteran team that could probably, if anybody can turn it up in the playoffs, they can. But I mean, you're talking either they're going to get Florida or Carolina, and both those teams have all kinds of pace and are relentless. And I'm just not sure about Washington's pace up and down the lineup, getting a little older, and whether their D can withhold that kind of relentless pace against them, and their goaltending can hold up. They can score and they can be physical, but I don't know how much they're going to have the puck against these other teams.
They got to do the work. They got to do the work at home if they're going to be getting anywhere. Yeah, I just couldn't tell if they were tired. That's why they were making such bonehead mistakes. Because when you look at some of them, you're like, that's an interesting way to think of things.
Yeah, it's tough to say what's going on there, but they've definitely they've started descending a bit. They haven't even leveled off. They started coming back, and those other teams are just, tell you, when you watch Carolina in person, I said this earlier, they are relentless. Florida, same kind of style. They're in your face all night, and they can beat you a number of different ways. Florida can. Carolina is just going to be relentless and outwork you. So we'll see. we'll see what happens there. I mean, out west is where all the excitement is, right?
That's where it all is excited. But good for Toronto. They seem to have settled on the tracks. They're back on the tracks, and they couldn't have picked a better time of year to get on the tracks. They could have done this 6 weeks out and not been on the tracks now. But going into the playoffs is a good time to do that. I think Giordano was the pick of the trades. I think he really changes that team.
He gives them a veteran that, can take the heat, shoulder the media load, and take some of the pressure and the spotlight off some of their young stars. Now, Toronto's going to get Tampa, Boston, or Carolina. That's how it's going to work, because
they don't want Carolina.
Yeah. So Florida's going to win the East, so they're going to get Washington. It looks like they're 6 points clear of Carolina. So Toronto's going to get Boston, Tampa, or Carolina. And so Toronto knows, and all those other teams know out there in the East, it's going to be absolutely brutal, whoever they play, the whole way through to try and get to the finals, get out of the Eastern Conference. And so they know that. If I don't know who they match up best against. I mean, them and Carolina would be incredible series. The pace,
incredible series, but I don't think they'll make it through it.
Yeah, it's tough to say how that would all work out. But Boston and Tampa, same kind of thing. Maybe a little bit more of a physical series against Boston, and then Tampa. They've got all that experience. So, beating
Tampa last night gives you an edge going into it. Now you can beat them. Had they lost that last night, there could have been second thoughts in their brain.
Well, Tampa Bay's trying to make the three-peat, right? So they're
tough thing to do.
And you watched them recently. They look like I don't want to say they're fatigued a little bit, but
how can they not be fatigued? They've played the most hockey.
Well, exactly. I said it about the Islanders and the Knights. Those are the two other teams that have kind of been in the Final Four in the mix the last 3 years. I definitely see fatigue in Islanders game. They're better lately, but they just got off to such a rough start. And then Vegas has really come on, but there's been fatigue in their game. And yeah, they've had a lot of injuries, but anyways, Tampa.
Which brings me to the season's too long. The season is way too long. All right?
I agree.
Yeah.
Even 78 games I could do, but 82 is just such a slog. And then trying to get into the playoffs, you could end up playing another 28 games. I mean, it's just crazy. But everybody wants their money, Mr. Bag.
Everybody wants their money. Bag. Speaking of money, I can't believe Vancouver's deciding whether they want to bring back Boudreau or not. They're doing we don't know. We're gonna talk about it in the off season. I'm like, ooh, I don't know if you're keeping your money to your vest there or what you're doing, but I know they're not going to get into the playoffs, but after what he changed that whole culture there, and you can say general managers and stuff changed, but I would say Boudreau definitely changed the whole mindset in Vancouver, including the fans. So I don't know how you don't give him at least 1 or 2 more years.
Yeah, he's a veteran guy. He knows how to push the right buttons. There's been a kind of a cloud over the organization for a while. Yeah. And I mean, we like Travis Green as a coach. Travis will get a job again somewhere else. It's not a matter of that, but just the kind of direction of it. I know the fans got really disgruntled up there. So Rutherford's brought in a calming hand at the upper executive level, and Boudreau's brought in some fun. Horvat, Pedersen, Quinn Hughes, Demko, these guys are the future of that team. And they've gone on and played really well. So, and then you got a year out of JT Miller, which was incredible, right? Mm-hmm. So you have depth issues in Vancouver. And the question is can they plug those gaps, and can they compete, for a full 82 games next year? Because every team has their slide. Vancouver's slide was just horrific at the start of the season. And even though they were way above 500 since Christmas, they still didn't have enough runway to catch everybody. And, you look at teams like Edmonton and Vegas, LA, they've all had their issues, even Calgary. But these other, their issues were not as prolonged. And so Vancouver's got to figure out what kind of coach they want for these guys going forward, and how's the relationship between the new GM? Is it Alvin up there and Rutherford and Boudreau? Do they see eye to eye? Are
Cammy
they in
Granato.
agreement? Cammy Granato's in there now as the assistant GM, and so they've made a lot of cultural changes to Vancouver to kind of. And I just feel like it's a lot lighter atmosphere, and Boudreau's a big part of that.
I would say it's a huge part of that. And you can't, right? You can't go from Boudreau over to, somebody who is a dark cloud. Like, it'll change it back in a second.
Well, here's a guy that's been around the game a long time.
Is Garland hasn't played well for him.
When you hear your name in trade rumors and you kind of, I would imagine he's going to get dealt in the summer. I thought Garland was going to go up there, and so did you, but I thought he was going to make a real big difference in that team. And I thought their power play was going to be lights out. I don't know where it is now. It's better than it was. I thought they'd be top 5 with him. And I mean, you look at that power play, you got him, Horvat, Pettersson, and Hughes, and then you could put Besser, JT Miller, I didn't even bring up. You have a number of guys that you can put on that power play, and it's better than it was. But they just had such a deep hole. Boudreau's done a great job. Maybe he's just a substitute teacher that came in and everyone loved, and they get the other teacher back next year, and we'll see what they do. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't keep him for at least another 2 years,
right?
Or at least offer him a 2-year deal. So, but they're I don't see them making it in the West now. They're too far back. If you look at the West, Calgary's kind of leveled recently. They took advantage of a young defense and youth movement in LA last night, beat LA. LA's been a huge surprise. I just wonder about LA, and it's no knock on the players they have, because it's been an incredible season, and I really like their young guys, but this is really crunch time now, and
right.
Until you've experienced it, you haven't experienced it. So I wonder if LA is going to start to slip here a bit. Vegas has the same amount of games played as they do.
And
They're
LA's got a lot of injuries still too.
And yeah, and so does Vegas, but Vegas is 4 points back, 11 games to play. Edmonton's a team to watch out for. I think they end up in second in the West. I think Calgary hangs on to first, and then I think it's either Vegas or LA that finishes third. But I mean, even Vegas trying to make it right now. They're in the second wild card, but it's going to be a stretch for them too, because they need LA to come back to them a little bit, and they need to keep winning, because I think the wild card is going to be a central team. But we'll see.
I love Dudanoff, or whatever his name was, coming from the trade, coming back and being able to play well and shine. What's his name?
The kid they got from Anaheim, Dadonov.
Dadonov, yeah.
That's so awesome. But another guy's picked it up recently.
I love it. Well, you love to see an underdog, right?
No, you know what? And he's endeared himself to his teammates. He's come back, he hasn't pouted, worked his butt off, and the
stood
crowd
up
down there love him.
And stood up for himself
team.
And said, that's not what I want. You're not allowed to do that to me. And he stood. That's for a young guy to do that. That's impressive.
Well, there's been a lot of turnover and a lot of people in the Vegas organization the last year or so. Now they have something to galvanize around, and that's Dadonov. And ironic as that is, even the fans are like, "This is awesome," and they love him. He's like a fan favorite now. And all the guys down,
which Vegas needed again. They really need, because what do they do? Your hockey people do things, but you have to realize your fan base needs a favorite. And they there's a lot of external pressure on these general managers and presidents to hockey operations, and it's just so much external pressure. Hey, we got to do this. That guy looks good. This looks good. Now all of a sudden, Dadonov looks fantastic. The community's supporting this guy. The team's supporting him. They've won 5 in a row. They play Vancouver Wednesday in Vegas, and they play Arizona on Saturday. So if they can grab points out of those, then they got points out of 7 games in a row. We'll see where they are. But again, it's going to be really tough for them to make it, because they got to have LA come back to them, and they got the central teams that are ahead of them in the wild card have games in hand. Right.
So even, so we'll see. I mean, you got to win those games.
I do know. Everybody else has got games in hand of Vegas. So.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So
we're
let's
going to
move
talk
on.
about we were going to talk about Corey Price, but we'll save that for next week because that'll still be available for discussion. Nothing's happening soon, so let's give our shout outs and let's get moving. Let's get our day
Okay.
going.
Yeah, we gotta get this done. So I'm gonna shout out to Ryan Getzloff.
Holy crap, we've done an hour.
Oh boy. Well, there's no one listening anymore anyway. Sorry, Getz. But I'm gonna give a shout out to Ryan Getzloff retiring after what 15 or 16 years. This guy was so entertaining to watch. He was the toe drag king. I loved watching him. Just a great player for Anaheim for all those years. I would have loved to have seen him maybe the last couple of years move to another team and get a shot at another cup like Corey Perry has done, because I think he's still serviceable, but great for him. And also a shout out to a couple friends from the East Coast of the United States who are getting married in a couple weeks. Jacob and Sydney. Sorry we can't make it to the wedding because we have other things that came up, unfortunately, like me going to Canada. But all the best. April 30th, they're getting married. It's going to be a beautiful day in a beautiful neighborhood of the East Coast of the United States, around not too far from your neck of the woods over there, Lord Bag and Lake Charles. It's going to be, I believe, around Charlotte, North Carolina, beautiful part of the country. So good for them and good for Getsy, a Hall of Famer and 2 future Hall of Famers.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't know who I'm going to give a shout out to. I want to give a shout out to my mom and dad. Talked to them the other day, and they're back scrapping. So that's good. My mom wasn't feeling well for a while, but my mom was giving my dad shit, and my dad was saying, "I wish mom wasn't feeling well again." so big shout out to my parents for still just kicking around and being my parents. That's right. My dad says, "Play all the young guys." That's what he always says. That's his move for everything that needs to be done. Anyways, love to all.
Love to all. Well, that's a wrap, everybody. Thanks for staying with us this week. I know it was a little bit of a tough haul there at the end, but we were able to get her done. Have a great week. Keep enjoying orange slices. Love to all.